Well, hello there and welcome back to the channel. It's Halloween, All Hallows Eve. And while I'm not an enormous fan of lots of kind of plastic ghouls and ghosts climbing up the front of your house, I do like to think back about the past. I like to think about how we got here. Our ancestors brought us. We are the product of many generations of how our families married their neighbours and had children. I also quite like the feeling that I might release my inner witchiness. I am haunted, perhaps, by the history of women who didn't fit an efficient mould. They were too scratchy, or asked too many questions, or just couldn't sleep at night, and so used to go for a walk, and people thought that was very odd. And how those women were declared witches. And sometimes they lived in communities where the wisdom that comes from walking around at night and thinking a lot, and so having sometimes answers to questions, was appreciated. But some of them lived in places where that kind of common sense wisdom, which perhaps didn't fit everybody else's idea of how society should work, had them ending up being ducked in the pond, or considerably worse, burnt alive at the stake. So this Halloween, I am raising a cup of coffee at 7:45 in the morning to my ancestors, to my grandmothers, to the people who made us who we are. And I'm going to allow myself, when I'm wide awake in the middle of the night, if I have a good idea, to write it down. And if I think it might be useful for other people, I will share it. And I will be grateful that I don't live in a time when I would be ducked in a pond for making a tisane out of herbs, or knowing that something might make you feel better, or just advising someone that they could consider not playing by somebody else's rules. Anyway, I thought you might like a little tour of the garden. It's a very beautiful time of year. I thought there might have been a frost this morning. I came down, and you can smell a frost. And I thought, it smells colder than it was forecast, but no frost, just a very heavy dew. And I thought we'd have a quick whip around the garden. It's too early in the day for me to cut flowers because the dew is so heavy. And it's cool, so the dew doesn't get dried up, even though it's a sunny, dry day. It's a beautiful day. The dew won't dry off really potentially all day. So the few dahlias I have left, I'm going to have to pick through them to find good enough quality for my clients at Number 1 Bruton. And I'm grateful that the restaurant there likes twigs and leaves and doesn't want flowers. They want twiggery pokery. How chic is that? So twiggery pokery coming up for Briar. The rest of the dahlias, I think Claudia will love. It doesn't matter if they only last 2 days, but she'll be happy for the colour in the drawing room at Number 1 Bruton. And you guys come for a walk around the garden with me while we're at it. And let us honour those grandmothers who were burnt at the stake for their wisdom. It's a cruel business. Just waggle my finger. Earlier this year, I read a book called Normal Women by Philippa Gregory. And if you like a bit of history and you have the patience to sit down with a book, I cannot recommend it more highly. You don't have to read it like a novel, kind of galloping through it. Read it in chunks and just digest how extraordinary it is that the human race has survived what we did to the women over the last 1,000 years. Anyway, here's to us all, the survivors. If you're new to the channel, you're very welcome. Please do subscribe, press the bell icon, and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming out. And if any of the tips and tricks we give you along the way are useful, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my club. Links to coffee buying and club membership are in the blurb to all my clips. Let's go on. So up here in the situtory of my flower studio is the wreathing station. I am making an enormous number of wreaths. I make several, ideally 20 a day, and they're all going up to London for wreathing workshops at Petersham Nurseries coming up, so that's very good. I think they're all sold out already, so well done, Petersham. And this is my potting up and planting out and pricking out station, things to do. The reason I've got vases here, I need to wash them up and put them away, is I was soaking anemones and ranunculus in these before putting them to sprout. I have a ranunculus and anemone growing demo coming up, so do have a look at the website and you can book a place on that, and I'll transform your ranunculus growing experience. Sometimes they can be a bit fiddly. I use Silvergrow peat-free compost. They do not pay me to tell you this. Obviously we need to use peat-free compost at all times. And then I have some tiny snapdragons that need pricking out, and some Orlea and some Ami. Here is some ranunculus, not in the greenhouse, but look, greening up. Can't see it. There. You can just see the beginning of colour. Here they come. But I've got more in the greenhouse. Let's go and have a look at the greenhouse. So if you've not been here before, this is the flower studio, which is up the field. It was a ruin. We lived here for 20 years before and finally turned it into a useful space. It was just a sort of roofless building before that. And then if I turn around slowly, there are my bulbs. That's next on the list. Everybody's bulb orders are arriving. I have many fewer than before because I used to plant a lot of tulips. And I've decided no more big tulip crop for me. My business ethos is to do less, better. I don't need to make a fortune. I need to make enough. So every year I work very hard to work out what my enough is. And then I work out how I can cost least to the environment and least to my business in order to make enough. So I don't have boxes and boxes. I've seen some of my flower growing colleagues with, enormous pallets of bulbs arriving. And I wish them all very good luck and good fortune getting them in, harvesting them and selling them. But anyway, I'm going for small. I'm doing a lot of ranunculus, which take up more space. So that's mostly ranunculus in there. Anyway, if I turn round, you can see behind me is one of my cut flower patches. I'll take you over there. Look, the trees here, we planted all of them. There's not a tree on the place that we didn't plant in the last 20 years. And all the hedges we planted. There's about half a mile of hedging. And then down there is the house where we live. But we're going to go this way. Come on. It's a lovely time of day and the sun just topping the hedges. It is beautiful when it's weather like this, isn't it? So here's some of my foliage in here. Lots of brachioglottis and physocarpus. I'm very, very fond of my physocarpus there for harvesting. And some of the bulbs that have just arrived will go in the long grass here. So some of it's for sort of serious harvesting. Some of it's for more opportunistic harvesting. This is the wildflower meadow. In the summer, this is a mass of flowers. And Fabrizio, look, the knapweed. The knapweed has grown as tall as me. I'm 5'2". I'm the same height as Kamala Harris. But don't wear such high heels. Although I like her trainer. She has a good line in trainers. Sensible lady. Got to move around fast and places to go. Heels can slow you down. Here on the hanging on these spikes are the seed heads of the orchids, and Fabrizio hangs them here so that they can be spread around the field. When we came here, this field was a ryegrass for feeding cattle, and now it is a wildflower meadow, due largely to Fabrizio's great deal of work. And I'm coming down here just because there's something that really amuses me and I thought you might like. I love, with garden design, I'm not a garden designer. We don't have a smart garden. But what we do have is sometimes the garden escapes. So here is Verbena bonariensis escaped into the long grass. And when you see little plastic holders like that, that's because every year we plant 25 trees, and that was last year. That's an amelanchier. Oh yes it is. Anyway, there we are. Escaped Verbena bonariensis into the long grass. And then we don't grow very well copper beech trees, but we have managed to make 2 survive. And this one is now about 15 foot high, so it's obviously enjoying its little spot next to a ditch. Maybe the ditch helps the drainage. Such a great colour. Here, this area is called the Gilly Orchard, because my mother, Googie, her real name is Gilly, and she gave us these trees, and the polytunnels are just the other side there. Glorious light. I'll go back this way. Look at that colour. It's great, isn't it? A couple of winters ago, we spent a great deal of money deer fencing the whole place. And now we just have one munkjack living in here, which is annoying that we have one. But I'll take you through. There are a lot of deer around here. Another bit of orchard. We call this the Gaird, which is an old English word for garden. It's spelled Gaerde. It's a walnut, much ravaged by the squirrels. And the pond that Fabrizio and the children dug during lockdown, it's full of newts. It's full of newts and dragonfly larvae. And you can see the netting over the top. Keep the heron off, so that the newts and the dragonfly larvae can flourish, which they do. It's an excellent year for crab apples. Some of these will stay for the birds, and a great many of them will also go up for the reesing workshops to London town. Stunning, aren't they? Look at the colour. Yes, that makes a Christmas wreath look Christmassy. Obviously you don't have to have the manky leaf, just the spangly. Who needs plastic baubles when you can have crab apples on your Christmas wreath? Into the greenhouse, sweet peas. They'll get planted into the tunnel soon. Some Jacob's Ladder, seed given me by lovely Isel at Yalham Hayes. Let's see how. Oh, look. Anemones. Ping, ping. I love the way they go ping. Oh, ping, ping, ping. Here they are. Great. Join me for my anemone and ranunculus workshop, and I'll tell you how to do this. The only reason I've got them in so early is so that I've got them to show you at the workshop. And here are the first ranuncs. So I've got some outside and these inside ever so slightly faster. There we go. Sweet peas. Pinched out already. This is a cold greenhouse. I didn't shut the door last night, but I do keep an eye out for frost. If it's going to freeze, I'll shut the door. And these are looking a little dry, so I'll give them a water, but they're all right. Look, these are the cuttings I took in a clip earlier this summer. Roots. Very exciting. Always worth checking for the roots. I plan my sweet pea crop in swathes of colour. So when I say white sweet peas, this is a mix of different white and cream varieties. And it should look really stunning, as well as be useful for cutting for my lovely wedding flower orders. This is the small tunnel, which will soon be filled up with winter annuals for flowering in the spring. But it is still full of Nicandra physaloides. Look at these beautiful seed heads. And shortly I will be harvesting these to dry and send up with all the other wreathing material to my customers in West London. It's cold enough that when I press the blip, the button on the phone to record, my finger's too cold to make it work. Oh, there's tidy. So we're ready here for planting with anemones and ranunculus and annuals and sweet peas and all of that. We're kind of getting there. We try not to mow too much in the winter, partly because there are an awful lot of invertebrates that live in the grass and find somewhere warm to snuggle down, but partly because we're very wet here. This is almost a marsh, and so if I walk up and down here in the winter a lot and it's tightly mown, then I will make a very muddy path instead of... Look, somebody's coming in here. That's the other thing, you can tell. Look, who is coming in? Now, I know that there's a fox and I know there's a munkjack. And so I suspect... Oh yeah, look. See, somebody has jumped through here with their lunch. And we keep the perennials tall until the spring. Again, a place for lots and lots of wildlife to live through the winter. And the honesty in this cold tunnel just lives there year after year and comes back in the spring, and I harvest it. And then I harvest about most of the seed heads and leave some to keep seeding around so that that honesty crop is sort of permanent. Look, it's amazing. Look, there's my shadow a bit. It's amazing. The light pops up and suddenly the willow is on fire. So I'm just waiting for the leaves to come off some more of the willow before I harvest more for my wreathing. It was quite cold last night. It wasn't a frost, but it will have helped bring off some of those leaves. So I can make the next 230. I think I've got 220 wreaths left to make through November. That's a great colour, isn't it? And then if we walk down here, so now I've gone round in a full circle. So there's the studio, and this is the patch where most of the annuals are. Anything that stays in the ground for a year kind of thing goes in here, except for these roses, because my studio used to be behind me. And so I kept the roses, a little bunch of roses here, so that I could pop out and just grab a handful to do a demo when I needed to. But I might move them this winter. So it's looking quite tidy along here. It's got that kind of tidying up type looking feel around it. Heaps of stuff for sorting and putting away. Half done. We've begun the mulching, so the beds look very tidy. Nicely mulched. And here, look, the dahlia's still hanging on. But if I look at them, you can see I was deadheading them yesterday, just pulling. I was talking to my, I have somebody who comes to see me from time to time. She started off as a mentee and is now really a friend. But anyway, from time to time we meet and have a catch up and a little review. And so we were looking at the dahlias yesterday and I was just pulling them off and throwing them onto the ground where they'd gone over. And so you see up close, not perfect, but I don't think Claudia will mind at number 1 Bruton. I think I'm just going to give her a mass of dahlias today. So I'll show you that later. I'll make an arrangement and you can join me as I do it. But look, just weather, a bit bashed and battered, not really perfect. Very, look at the cobwebs, very Halloween. Cobwebs everywhere. And the stunning blackjack. I mean, you know, really, of all the dahlias, he is... My favourite is blackjack, not the most prolific for sale. I think if I was doing a lot of markets, he would do very well. Oh, he's so fabulous. So him, and if I could only have two dahlias, I'd have blackjack, because, yes, you agree, I'm sure, and... Alio. She's a much better colour than she looks on my screen. In real life, she's a more alive pink. A lot of foxglove seedlings. I'll sort these out a bit, move them around so that I don't waste them. And I will finally dig these up next week, whatever happens. But let's enjoy them for just a few more days. Aren't they good with the yellow of that sugar maple behind them? See what I mean about blackjack? And then all cobwebby for Halloween. It's as if they knew. It's as if they know. This row of hornbeam I crop a lot through the summer. I sell the stems, I sell the branches by the foot. And they were planted by my father-in-law. And he died 14 and a half years ago. So he probably planted them about 16 or 17 years ago. So this row of hornbeam are, yeah, probably 17 years old. We planted all of the trees and all of the hedges here at Common Farm. And I have to say, I'm very proud of how we've made a kind of good woodland garden. And all of this foliage is part of what we cut for sale. And having it means that we have this extraordinary environment for invertebrates. So it's a two-way street. The business and the trees support each other. And then up here, this is where the roses and the perennials are. This is willow herb. It's a weed. And the small birds will be very happy that we've left it. Yes, it will. The seed will blow onto the beds and we'll have to weed out the seedlings. But imagine this as food for birds in the winter. And if we don't feed the birds, what are we gonna, the whole thing breaks down. So we have a very weedy patch. But it's pretty. Love a gate. So this area up here is mostly shrubs and perennials. Look at the colour of the willow there. This is Somerset in southwest England, where willow does very, very well. The orange is Salix alba, so it's not a good name because there's nothing white about it. It's not white willow, it's orange willow, but it is stunning. And at this time of year, this is when the shrubs really, the perennial shrubs, so the green one you can see in between the weeds there, that's Griselinia, and then we've got bay at the end. And we've harvested most of the grasses, most of the sedum, most of the hydrangeas for our Christmas orders. And there's the studio in the middle of the whole plot. So it feels kind of apt that the magical willow should be such a glorious colour on All Hallows Eve. And I'm glad that the sun is shining and lighting up the change in the season. And I hope that as you watch this, you will think, oh, I wonder if I had magical ancestors who knew the ways of the natural world and would walk about at night under the stars, moonbathing, hoping not to get caught and dunked on a ducking stool for being odd. So this Halloween, I'm going to celebrate my witchy ancestors, and I'm going to release my inner witchiness, the magic we have. We all have magic inside us. We are all very wise if we only listen to ourselves and stop trying to fit in or be like everybody else or be likable or be liked. Just be ourselves. We're all very likable, really. And put your feet on the earth, sniff the wind. And if we feel clever things and understand clever things, share that information, because these days you won't be dunked on a ducking stool, and nor will you be burned at the stake. Yes. Anyway, happy Halloween, everybody, and All Saints' Day tomorrow, when we can march around singing "For all the saints who from their labours rest," and so on. Anyway, bye.